Thank you all for joining us for another session of today's class. Last week we talked about variables, where we looked at variables based on rows. In variables based on rows, we looked at the various variables, and independent variables, dependent variables, confounding variables, and control variables. So today we're looking at variables by nature. When we're looking at variables by nature, we're looking at how do you categorize variables based on the nature of your data you've collected. You understand? How you collected that's not information you gather from collecting data from your audience. So in view of this, we have two types of variables in terms of the nature of data collected. We have the quantitative variables and the qualitative variables. As the name implies, quantitative, quantity, many. Qualitative, quality, in-depth. So quantitative variables are seen as variables that are actually measured and expressed in terms of numerals or numerically. Numerically, we remind us 1, 2, 3, 0.1, as the case may be. Are we there? So there are two types of quantitative variables. We have the interval data or variable, and we have the discrete data or variables. We mean that any variable that deals with numerals that have some equal intervals or not, for those quantitative variables. For example, or you can call continuous variables too. We use the word continuous and discrete, so that it creates confusion. So continuous variables are variables that, for example, we have your temperature, you have your height, you have your weight, so many. And the discrete variables are seen as maybe your test scores. So those are quantitative variables. While quantitative variables, as I said before, quality. These types of variables are variables that actually measures categories and qualities of information you've collected. Consider what? Categories and what? Qualities. And examples of quantitative variables, we have the nominal data or variables, this will be, or the ordinal data of variables. The nominal data are all categories of category information, the information you get. You don't really have much, let me not go too deep into it. You don't really have much meaning. Just say, okay, this data categorized. Like you see gender, males and females. There's nothing much you can really get from it. Whether you're a male or what, you are a female. The ordinary data that just shows ranking or information you've collected. So most of those data that you get, they just give us categories, or give us literatures on what you've collected. It gives us an in-depth understanding of what information you've gotten for those quantitative variables. So, and we have various ways of collecting those variables, but that we look at in the chapter in methodology of study. We look at our interviews, look at for the quantitative variables, we look at the questionnaires, we look at surveys. So that we look at that critically while dealing with methodology. Then variables by measurement scale. Measurement scale are the various ways in which we used to get our measures when we collect our data. So there are various scales that we intend to use, and we need to know. Very critical too. Same when you are doing your data analysis. That is when you are doing analysis in chapter 4. And it depends on what you are doing. So in view of this, we have the nominal scale, ordinal scale, interval scale, and ratio scale. Nominal scale, as we stated before, They are part of the qualitative data. They're just skills that they're just data that gives us categories. Just give identification of people or location of the entries, like address of people. You understand? Your gender. And those things that okay, these are also okay, let's identify people. Let us just know, let us just identify them or classify them based on various categories. So those what nominal what scale. Collect information like that. Nominal scale. Then ordinal scale is when you collect information that shows ranking. First position, second position, third position, the case may be. Those what? Ordinal what? Scale. Many of you know ordinal scale, like a position in your classroom. Took first, took second, took third. And those first, second, third, they mean something. The first is like maybe there will be a range of scores that make that person come first, second, and third. So if you get those data that shows us how they are ranked, maybe the first person we have a score, a higher score, second person and third person, put what? Ordinal what? Scale. The interval scale, it has also numerals too. In this type of scale, the data collected, they all have equal intervals. You understand? But the difference between this scale and ratio scale is that there's no 0 point here. It's not like there's nothing like 0. Here we start from 0.1 and place it down. For example, is temperature. You have degree Fahrenheit, degree centigrade. There's no like 0 point there. You can start from minus 10, minus 20. One like ratio scale, also equal distance. But in this one here, we have 0 points. For example, your height, your weight, will be 0 what point to show that this is where the starting point of your data you collected. This is where it's getting to. That makes sense? Okay. So that is that about scale. Then other variables. Other variables that, although at times people will categorize these other variables based on rows, but I just want to just leave it plain. Let us separate them different, but they're not really part of. They don't confuse us because they're almost like the controllable and confounded variables that we discuss in the variables by rows. Examples of other variables which we want to look at today is extraneous variable. Extraneous what? Variables. Extraneous variables are variables that are uncontrolled in your study that can actually affect the results collected or that can affect your dependent variables. You understand? So any variable that you do not control that can affect the study are called those extraneous what? Variables. While moderating variables, another type of other variables, moderating variables are variables that can either show direction or show the strength of direction of how the independent variable relates to what? Dependent variable. Okay? Can show the strength of it. Like for example, in gender, when we look at how does gender, and gender can influence how people cope, how stress affects work productivity. I can compare when males are stressed and their work output to when females are what? Stressed, their work output. So gender in that study can show us the direction of which of them will be more stressed or which of them will be more productive. Are we there? Yeah. That's about what? The moderating what? Variables. Why we can also have other types of variables too. Some also called mediating variable too. Mediating variable is just a variable that is just in between. I can show you how the independent variable kind of relates. Okay, just to show that this is how it relates in your study you're trying to do. Like for example now, you are looking at how diets influence body weight. You understand? In between there, what can moderate it? What can mediate between the two of them? It's not food. It's not food. What can be a mediating variable that can influence how your diet can influence your body weight. Also, physical activity can also be part of it too. No diet things as food too. Physical activity can mediate between diet and body weight, because if you eat healthily and you don't exercise, it can affect your body weight too, or your normal BMI, I guess it may be. Then the last type is latent variable. This one is not really observed but can affect your study. Like for example, sports intelligence. I call that latent variables. You don't really observe them, but there are studies that there are also type of variables that can affect your findings you've collected. For example, you are looking at how teaching method influence achievement tests. Some kids may be very intelligent in the control group. Despite you try to control the variables, and then maybe you didn't really find out maybe through the prior knowledge, but they didn't show through your pre-test that you scored high. But in time for your process, they might score very high scores. They may affecting your data you collected. You understand? Because those variables that can affect your data you collected, that you can't really observe. Those latent variables. So we just run through the whole variables categories. So I hope with this we can come out to say, okay, to some extent we can talk to the public or write our research projects that issues, and subsequently we'll know more about it. So for the next class, we will now look at methodology of the study to see how we can select design, sample size, and application. So please, if you have questions, don't write it on your comment section. We'll follow it up from there. Then if you want to have any normal discussion with us, so write it there. We'll reply you immediately so that we will know what to do to improve our teaching and learning process. I hope you've learned a lot from this, and stay blessed. Thank you for listening. Thank you.